Gregor and Scarlett Hollerin are the amazing duo behind Story Shop, the UK's small PR consultancy of the year 2023. Since launching their award-winning PR and marketing agency in 2020, they've grown Story Shop into a small but mighty powerhouse agency known for innovative and impactful campaigns. Gregor, with his background in PR, and Scarlett with her expertise in storytelling and marketing, have bridged the gap between clients and agencies doing work that truly makes a difference. Their journey from small startup to leading consultancy is a testament to their dedication, creativity, and absolutely amazing work ethic. Enjoy the conversation. Very much looking forward to today's conversation because I know you've got so many insights to share and we've gone through some of the same agency trials and tribulations. So there's definitely a camaraderie there, which I think people will be able to learn a lot and get inspired by. So I want to take you back to those early days when you were thinking about starting a company, and really what inspired you and what those early days really felt like before you went to take the leap. So if you can take us all back to that time.
I think we'd been talking about starting a business for a long time. We didn't really know what that business was going to be, but I think we knew, like, I'm very bad at a lot of things and Scarlett's quite bad at a few things. But fortunately, the things that we're bad at seem to be quite complementary, where the other person's quite good at. And we thought, right, well, we could do something together as a business. And we talked about lots of things. So we talked about starting a B&B. That was a long-term thing we were talking about maybe doing because we thought Glasgow didn't have enough cool places to stay for tourists and things. So we thought, right, well, we could do that. But then we kind of realised that we didn't have any experience in any sort of hospitality or anything, and that probably wouldn't work out. So we thought we'd maybe stay a bit closer to what we did have experience in, which was PR for me and then marketing for Scarlett. And then at the same time, like, a lot of our friends were building really cool businesses, like you being one of them. Like, I think we looked at you and what you were doing, and it was really kind of like inspiring to us. And a lot of our friends were starting to go through that journey, and it made it a bit more real. Because I think when you start and you expect to go in some sort of career and you don't automatically think about becoming an entrepreneur, it feels a bit far in the distance, just going out and starting your own business and putting it all out there. So I think to see it and feel it, and maybe that our friends that started businesses were so far ahead of us, but they'd done it. You've kind of seen the journey, seen a lot of the kind of slip ups, being able to learn from their mistakes, seen what they'd done really well, and it felt a bit more achievable to go out and start a business that could actually, pay for our mortgage and things. So
we used to talk about work a lot at home as well, just because of being in the same sort of circles, in marketing and PR. It's a very small world, especially in Glasgow as well. So from my perspective, being in-house as a client, and then Gregor's perspective being in the agency side and dealing with clients all day long, and the kind of common frustrations, the frustrations we'd have on both sides of that were kind of talked through so much that we felt there's maybe is something there. And I think that's where the kind of the start of it, where it started essentially between about running an agency ourselves.
I think we kind of realised that like agencies and marketing were too far apart. And then by talking together all the time, we realised, they kind of need to be closer, because a lot of time there was a blame game. The client wouldn't know what the agency was doing a lot of the time sometimes. And there was a lot of kind of similar frustrations that we were kind of seeing and themes developing really from Scarlett's experience. And then me from the other side being able to explain what inbuilt structures within an agency are making that happen. And then, like any business, you see an opportunity and you think, right, well, there's a slight problem here through the fact that it's been how it's always been done. So we can go in, start fresh, do it a little bit differently and come up with something a bit different.
And I think that gave us the confidence because we were building something that was directly based on our experience. So, it's not always the case. People start a business and, had we gone down the B&B route, that would have been a lot more. But it was familiar to us. We were kind of basing it entirely on kind of both sides of that coin. Yeah. Mm.
And how do you think you've evolved your model? I think that's a really interesting point, because I see that firsthand as, the agency has their perspective, the client has their perspective, and we're just kind of missing the mark on both sides sometimes. So how have you used that really unique knowledge in your model at Story Shop to say, okay, we understand where everyone's coming from, and how do we kind of break down some of those barriers as you build the company?
I think there's a few elements. I think kind of the way we built the business and the team, and we always wanted to be a team. We never wanted to be just Gregor and I. We had teams in our previous roles. We looked after kind of quite big teams, and I definitely wanted to expand to have an agency, you know, rather than being just the two of us. And the way we kind of built that structure was a big part of that. And we kind of currently operate on a flat structure that we can maybe go into more later. But I think, you know, so setting ourselves up to be that. But I think it really comes down to sort of the trust and the honesty and the conversations that we have with the clients. We say no a lot to our clients all the time to protect ourselves, to protect our relationships, whether it's with the media or whatever, but saying no builds trust as well. And I think, you know, having that, I remember, well, we say no a lot to our current clients, but also to actually working with the right people from day one. And we remember putting down as one of our goals, if we can turn away some business, you know, then, you know, that'll be brilliant kind of thing. And we really celebrated that when we were able to say no for the first time to a new bit of business, because we knew that is what's going to protect us and set us apart, is by only working with people that we really believe, you know, have a good story and or, you know, we're passionate about. And as soon as we lose that just for a money's sake, if we're kind of chasing sort of growth and things, then we're gonna be on the back foot again. And I think, yeah, that was important.
Also, saying no is more, I think it's really about the type of, you know, person you're dealing with a lot of the time and things. And I think like that's why we've been able to do that and be a bit closer, because I think we do genuinely have really good relationships with our clients, and we know that they're kind of in it for the right reasons. We know they're not going to just use it as a blame game type thing. We know there's not, sometimes agencies are kind of set up to fail, you know, the whole thing. They're not given the opportunity to succeed, and there's not buy-in from the client. And I think we've kind of deliberately chosen clients where they have skin in the game, like they're really as invested in making it work as we are. And then it is, you know, it's the most kind of trite thing in the world, but it's a true partnership and you're both in it together. So then you're not just spending loads of time doing stuff for a tick box exercise. Everything you're doing is geared towards making impact towards the end goal of what you're trying to achieve. And that builds this, you know, it puts you on the same page as them. Whereas I think a lot of times, you know, clients and agencies aren't.
Yeah. And I think you never want to get to the end of the month and you're sort of justifying your existence to them. And we never want to, get there. So whatever we can do to kind of ensure that that's not the case, and that is the case quite often. And I don't know if it's due to size. A lot of the agencies I worked with previously that are brilliant across the UK, but they're huge, and that must come with some sacrifice. So I think size is an important one for us, and it's one of our biggest strengths. We feel is that if we can stay this sort of small, medium size that we are, then there's a real strength in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think coming from that client side, you have a really unique perspective. And then also Gregor being able to be extremely honest about what happens agency side, you know, I think that builds really, really deep trust and connection that then you can give to the customers. So I think that is something really special in the space. So I heard something this morning, Gregor, that made me think of you, and it was Jerry Seinfeld talking about pain is knowledge rushing in. So the example is if your bed is in a slightly different position to where you thought it was and you smash your foot on it, pain is the knowledge rushing in of where the bed actually is, and you've learned that for the next time. So my question to you is, what is your failure that is your favourite failure, which was painful at the time, but subsequently the knowledge has come rushing in?
Impression. I might just filibuster by doing a Jerry Seinfeld impression, but no. I think there have been times where we have gone for big pitches and we've put an awful lot of agency time into it, and it was more about ego, about thinking that would be a really good thing to. We didn't really kind of qualify the lead enough. I think we went in knowing that we were maybe there as a wild card. Mm-hmm. And the idea of us being in was good for our egos to get this big global brand to go and work with and things. And we thought, but I think it was set up against us. And I think like then that really means that like we really, you know, we don't waste a lot of time pitching for our clients if we don't like really think they're going to want to work with us, because like I think one of the big things with us being small is that we don't want to be for everyone. We're not for everyone, and that's okay and things. And I think it's more about working with these, and that's the kind of learning process about who you decide to put in that, because a pitch is for a small agency, a pitch is a huge drain. And, you know, and it puts a lot of pressure on the team. It puts a lot of pressure on, you know, and one of the biggest things does is like to be fair to the paying clients, that you're not suddenly spending all the time pitching and all that energy isn't going in and the same energy is going into the paying clients. And I think maybe in a time, and I think it was earlier on, but I think in a time when we've gone for that and maybe known heart of hearts that it wasn't the right thing to do, and then exhausted a lot of energy, and then, but great experience, learn a lot. You kind of, you know, you can feel like you've kind of deserved to be there as well. Like you do feel like you've kind of proved yourselves a bit. But I think we're definitely going through that process, we've kind of realised that, right, well, we're going to be a bit more deliberate about what we decide to go for.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, yeah, you do have a gut feeling sometimes, but you're right. You think, oh, this is an amazing seat at the table, or we get access to this room, and all of that is true, and it's great to get that exposure, but also I think can be disheartening for the team if really you didn't stand a chance in the first place and you're just kind of there to make it what looks like a fair process. So, yeah, I think that's totally accurate and makes you more intentional, again, about what you said earlier about who you actually work with and what you say no to. Scarlett, any failures from your side that you think I wouldn't trade that in for anything?
No, I think starting a family at the exact same time as starting a business is not a failure, but I would not trade that situation for anything in the world. But it's difficult to not kind of feel like you're letting one side of that, you know, down at any one point. So it's not a failure, and you know, it was our choice, but we have 2 young kids and a 4-year-old business, so it's certainly been challenging, but not one I would have changed. So maybe kind of.
Yeah, it's like feeling like a failure all the time. Like every day, you either feel like you're not being a good enough dad or mum, or you're not being good enough with your work and kind of try to build this business and not able to put in as much energy. Because I know if I'd started this before kids, I put in a lot of time into Story Shop, but I know I would put in even more if it was before kids and things. And then so that kind of feels like you're always feeling like you're not quite doing enough for either, and that's a kind of difficult feeling. But had
we had kids before we started, it definitely. It wouldn't be here, I don't think. So, you know, it was the right order, but it was, it's been an intense ride.
I can absolutely relate to that, and I will not ask you the work-life balance question because I can't stand it personally. But what I will ask you is, how do you deal with that chaos, and do you have any strategies for how you prioritize your time, or what do you do? Because all of it never goes away, and I think I've learned my own coping mechanisms over time, but I'm interested in how you guys do that, or what you do to structure the day to bring some order to the chaos.
I'd love to have a great answer about how we do that, but you just kind of, there's a lot of kind of like flow, like you find the times to work when you can, and you know, you can't. I think the first few times where you have a plan for what you're going to do, then the nursery calls, or you know, or whatever, that you kind of realize that this is just all going to happen, and you're just in the flow of it. And you know, if the time to work is a Sunday morning when Gran can take the kids for a couple of hours and you can do work, but then you might have to take the Thursday off because the nursery can't take them that day, and that, you know, you've just got to kind of go in for the ride and just let it all happen and try and find opportunity to work when you can, really, and everything.
I think our children are very familiar with the Story Shop office and the team as well. They've had to have their fair share of time in there too. But yeah, and I think for me, I really try to kind of remember the benefits and of the flexibility. There's not much, but at least when the nursery does call, I don't have to ask anyone else. I might have to, but I can sort the problems out myself, and I'm in control of those issues that might cause, whether, I can pick up tonight or whatever it might be, but I can at least, you kind of have to keep reminding yourself, that there are benefits of being, your own boss and having the kind of flexibility. But yeah, we're very sort of go with the flow people. We're very busy people. We were busy people before we had kids. We used to cram in a lot to life, whether that was like side jobs, extra jobs. Gregor did his circuits on top of his job. I did kind of interior stuff and things on top. We're kind of used to chaos. We quite like it, actually. I would say we probably thrive in a wee bit of chaos. We don't mind doing things last minute. Like, that doesn't bother us. We've not booked a holiday, but we're hoping to go away next Thursday. So, that's how we sort of roll most of the time. And actually, we kind of get a wee kick out of it, I would say. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is because you could easily, when you're doing both, because it's quite it's a tough thing to do, it is, but you just, you've chosen, we could go and get jobs, we could go and get jobs and it could be a little bit easier and things, but you've chosen to do it. We've chosen to have kids. We're incredibly, incredibly lucky to have kids. We're incredibly, incredibly lucky to have Story Shop. Doing both at the same time is very difficult and has challenges, but we wouldn't swap either of them. So you have to keep, sometimes in the thick of it, when there's deadlines and then an ill child and then you get ill and everything, it becomes like, why is all this happening to me? But then it's not happening to you. Like, we have made this choice, we have actively made this choice to do something that is quite hard, but doing hard things is good.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very good for you. And nobody cares when you're ill. That's the thing when you become a parent, literally no one ever cares when you're ill. So
I know.
You have to learn how to cope
Stop
with
looking
that.
for sympathy.
Oh yeah, you don't even realise you're ill sometimes, and you're like, oh, I think I've been actually really ill for a week.
Yeah, you forget what it actually feels like to feel healthy.
Okay, so let's talk about at the beginning. So, those very first days, what started to work well to get you off the ground and made you realise, okay, this is actually a real thing. This is a real business. Talk about some of those things for me.
It was March 2020 when we officially launched. So when we had, the website went live the first week of March. So COVID was looming, and that was definitely coming, and we were kind of aware of that by that point. Now, we had actually started working a little bit kind of freelancing since the Christmas time before that. But yeah, I think COVID, despite it being awful in most cases, it did allow us to have pure dedication to starting this business with no distractions. There was nothing else going on around us, and we had a really nice community of a network, you guys included. People were reaching out. We didn't shy away from it. We told everyone what we were trying to do. And I think because it's quite a vulnerable place to say I'm starting this, and it's quite exposing, but actually I really felt the more honest we were about to everyone about what we were trying to do and achieve, the more people kind of put their hand out or, made a connection to someone they knew. And around COVID time, there was, a lot of businesses were sort of shaking things up. They were trying stuff new, or they were kind of trying to exit out of large retained kind of agency partnerships or whatever, and they were looking for some short-term solutions. And I think we were kind of there at a right time for that. So definitely kind of, having that community around us was huge to kind of help us initially.
And we got work from that community, and then, because, and I think we knew a lot of people, and then we ended up getting work quite quickly, and then that meant we were able to get case studies quite quickly. And I think we're good at what we do. We're good at the job. We're still learning how to run a business and things like that. But I think because we were able to get these really strong case studies right away, like the first campaign we ever did was a campaign for our friends who were rowing across the Atlantic Ocean, and it was hugely successful. It ended up helping to raise £200,000. We got 200 pieces of media coverage. So there were 35 boats going across the Atlantic. That boat got more coverage than every single other boat combined because we had orchestrated this media campaign that the others hadn't. And I think that kind of was a really strong case study. So off the back of that, when there was loads of these kind of fun charity things that people were trying to do during COVID, so we got a lot of them, and then also kind of connection into all their sponsors, it heightened awareness of what we could do, and that was a kind of validation, because I think kind of anything we'd done before as part of a big agency or Scarlett had done in-house, it was kind of irrelevant to people because you don't really know how big a part you are of any big thing. But to have these case studies where we went out, did the work, had really strong case studies, and then people were able to say, it's just the two of you and you did all that, so we want to work with you. And that kind of created, so quickly gave us the confidence that, okay, well, we can do this and we can bring enough work in for us and kind of keep going for a little bit until we kind of get to the next stage. But that was to know that we could go out and just do it ourselves without all the support of what a big agency would have and still do these campaigns that were getting global, international coverage was kind of really...
Yeah, it helped our confidence, and it was a good practice run for Gregor and I to work together for the very first time and also split the tasks, understand who could help who, how we worked, and it went really well, and that was the kind of starting off point for the rest of it. And I think I remember so clearly doing the calculation of how much money do we need to make to cover all costs, right? Okay, that's the baseline target. And then from then on, it was really, we were probably more on the sort of short-term goals than we ever were like massive vision ahead. Like I remember every single month we used to sit and do 5 biggest things that went well last month, 5 biggest things we could do that would make the biggest difference for the next month. And it was quite simple, and we'd sit down and it was amazing to see the achievements month to month, rather than anything kind of more longer term. And then again, I think, I mentioned it already, but being able to say, no, you're not the right type of business for us. It's not the right type of work / business, and really kind of carve that client list, how we wanted to, shape it. So, yeah.
I think that long-term thing, I think thinking back to the pandemic, you couldn't think long-term. You just didn't know whether it was going to stop tomorrow or in 2 years. You didn't know kind of what industries were going to start thriving, what weren't. Like, I remember having the conversation about whether we go sector specific, and and that I'm so glad we didn't, because it's given us all this additional perspective and being able to have a wider field of vision for all the clients. But if we'd gone sector specific, and then you couldn't have predicted that at that time, because you didn't know what was going to do well and what was going to happen, really. So it just allowed us to kind of focus on one foot in front of the other and just kind of keep going.
Yeah. And an additional sort of early success, I think your advice again actually was about an accountant, and we got a very good accountant, and I think they have really kept us on the right path since day one. And I would say that to anyone that's starting a business, that has been a real comfort blanket to me and Gregor, especially having not run a business before, and there's so much to learn in that front. It was comforting to know that someone, we could just really concentrate on getting the invoices in, getting money coming in, and then the rest of it, I knew that I could have the support of her to kind of figure out and map out how it was looking. And that was a real key thing, and still is for our business, is to have that support there externally. And then, making a successful first hire was, I think, a big reason for our kind of acceleration or whatever in the early days, because we hummed and hawed for so long. You don't know when the right point is to bring to such a big jump from just your worries. We were working around the table in the flat and to saying when's the right time. And
I remember jumping to a Zoom with you and Craig just trying to work out. I was like, when do we hire? When's the right time to hire someone? And we've got no idea.
I remember asking, how much money do you have to have in the bank to be able to afford somebody else? And I could afford them for now, but then even just silly things like, right, I need to buy a laptop, I need to buy this, and what does that add up to? And are we ready yet? But actually, and had our first hire not been a success, I think that would have really rocked us, and we would have been nervous from then on out. However, the opposite happened. We hired Lara, and instantly felt this, the benefits and what she could add, how she kind of helped the business flourish and support. And it gave us such confidence about, all right, okay, I see how this goes. We can, now we can take on more work. It was exactly how it should happen, take on another step, more work, blah, blah, blah. And then it kind of felt like, right, we're ready to go again. And because of the confidence of that I gave us with Lara. Now, it's a nice story because Lara did leave about a year ago to go and run a B&B in Arran, and through different circumstances has joined back this week. So she came back to Story Shop and is now back with us full time. So we're very excited about that. So that was
amazing.
Yeah, I think they're probably the kind of early key things that kind of led to it, whether it's giving us confidence or just kind of success to move on.
Really interesting kind of chain of events, because I think the pandemic you don't necessarily think is like a great time for business, but actually it was a really forgiving ecosystem you were coming into, and everyone was kind of trying to do things together. And you're right, everyone was testing things and it wasn't all working, but actually that was fine. So I think that is really interesting. Lots of businesses will have been born then, and you're totally right on the first hire side. I remember feeling the same thing ourselves, and you never know like when you've really got enough, but it's actually more of a feeling. And then once that person comes in, and our first hire was Alex, who's still with us today, and it changes the business just in a million different ways. And I think those first few hires really set the culture for the company, for better or worse. So some people won't make out the gate because they've got that early hiring wrong. So yeah, I think those first hires just, and the change it makes when you can start to give some of those jobs to other people who can generally do it much better than you can, which you're like, it's amazing to see. So
absolutely
all of that. And the financial professional, like I found there was something early on that was very helpful, which was somebody objectively telling you the business was growing. So it sounds really obvious, but you knew it was growing and you had sales and things, but somebody very objective just being like, yes, this is a growing business, who's seen lots of growing businesses.
Yes,
kind of brings that confidence to you who's never done it before and doesn't really know, is it real, is it not, is it a artificial moment in time? And having a solid seasoned professional is good to
totally. That's exactly what we
more solid or seasoned than Jennifer.
Oh yeah, and she's just an absolute legend. So yeah, I think having that objectivity was very helpful because you're so in it and you can't see anything, and you think it all looks good, but you just don't have any outside voices. So yeah, and it just keeps.
Money's not something that you discuss with many people, and. Or, you have so many kind of helpful conversations, but you don't really ask how much are you earning, and how much are you bringing in. So you're kind of on your own in that. And we had no reference point as to what, but obviously with time you kind of understand and you set goals. And actually it was our accountant setting us goals, which was, earlier.
Her giving you permission, because we were so scared. Like we were taking almost nothing out of the business at the start, for a long time, and really just keeping everything in out of fear, and to have almost permission that it's okay to pay yourself a salary and you to live on and things like that. And and I think that was a kind of big thing, because I would have needed that permission, because it's not an area you're stronger at it than I am, but I'm just not strong at it, and I'd be too scared about tomorrow to start and
yeah, and I think that's it. You don't really have any long-term runway. Nobody's signing 10-year contracts, so you are really working in a constantly cash moving in and out 3-6 months at a time. So yeah, I think you learn so much on the job. I think from things look really good on paper to there's actually no cash in the business, and that's a major problem. So I think learning by doing, definitely.
Totally. but we don't really have a reference point for, pre-COVID as well, which is kind of funny sometimes, like the flexible working, everything else is all we've known. But I remember how much time COVID saved us, because we had a few weeks where we'd literally try and meet everyone we knew or anyone that we had a kind of vague connection with. We'd ask them for a coffee, and we'd literally probably leave for a first coffee at 9, go to one at like 11:30, try and do one at 2, and come back at 5. We hadn't done a bit of work, but it took us so long getting place to place and, meeting people in person. And then to suddenly being able to do that within the space of an hour back to back on Zoom, and not having to leave the flat, like the amount of time saved was amazing for us, and we could have so many conversations. We could have conversations out with Glasgow and meet loads of people. And
It opens us up to London clients. I remember like a couple of weeks before lockdown, we kind of stacked our week, went down to London, we're going to meet loads of people. And one by one, every single meeting went on Teams. It was just we were sitting in London having these Zoom meetings with everyone who was just outside London in there, and it was crazy. And it was, but it did kind of, because if you're just on a screen, it doesn't matter where you are. So it opened us up to a lot of we won quite a big London client quite early on, and that opened the door to a few more and things, and that was really great, because it just did just threw everything up in the air.
Yeah. So moving on to company culture, because I know that's something you guys have been so intentional about, and I think you're both very creative people by nature. What are your favourite kind of stories or traditions or things that you've done that you think have really bolstered culture in the company?
We host Christmas dinner every year at our house, which is always a really nice thing to be able to do, and we're able to do it because we're quite small, and I think that's become this really nice thing that we get everyone round to our house, and we do that. I think we do 3 times a year. We do a company away day based on a kind of theme. So, and that theme is usually about the kind of the problem that we have to solve as to take the next step as an agency. So that could be anything from, we did one which was about football, which was all about teamwork, and everyone is kind of emphasising the flat structure. Everyone is as equal as everyone else, and plays as an important role, whether they're up front or in defence or whatever it might be. And we do these kind of company updates, and then we go and do something fun after. And these big days where we can just, because it's quite relentless in an agency, because I always say that one of the hardest things is you can celebrate something going really well for a client, but that inevitably means that there's something that you immediately have to move to for the other client, because that's not quite had as much attention. So there's not these real kind of celebration moments. So I think doing these away days where we sit and we go, right, we're doing amazing, and we're actually ready to take the next big step forward, has been a really kind of nice tradition to be able to do.
I think, the away days have become a bit of a tradition, and we always say that we're very good at taking things too far, and that whenever there's a theme, there's matching merch. There's the whole day is sort of centered around. So we've had a sort of Disney related away day that was based around customer service and just like imagination and creativity, but matched with like excellent customer service, everything that Disney is. We had the football, the Story Shop FC. We've had kind of the 17 peaks, which was a kind of mountain, like understanding where we're trying to go and what is the peak for us, kind of campfire situation away day. We've done loads of fun stuff, and then we had our 4th birthday in March there, and kind of celebrated that in a typical 4-year-old style. So I think we put a lot of effort into that, and we can do that because we're small. And I think we see a lot of benefits. Anything to do with culture helps when you're smaller, and it's one of the reasons we want to stay the size that we are. And I think, but from a kind of culture point of view, I think the biggest thing really is, because we're small, we can kind of treat them all as individuals, and there's no real cookie cutter approach to anything that we do, and everyone kind of comes in. We really always kind of go hard on them to ask them what they're not good at, because whatever you're not good at, there's someone else that's good at that. And we hate the thought of someone spending a load of time on something that it just takes them ages, or they're not as good at, where someone else could have done that for them. So just kind of pushing people into their strengths and molding a role to really suit that, and that they can all pick a role and pick the bits of the job that they want to do and fill their time up with the bits that they are, a 7, 8, 9 out of 10 at, and not, on the earlier end of the scale. So I think, a lot of work goes into that on an individual basis to kind of make sure people are in that place, and a lot of kind of communication with them all. And then, the kind of bespokeness to whatever it is, birthday presents, anniversaries, we celebrate big because they mean a lot to Gregor and I, for people that stick around, so we kind of go big on that. So, I suppose it's just a kind of mixture of the kind of personal development and employee sort of stuff, and then sort of having fun at the same time. And I think agencies have a bad reputation for being like relentless, as Gregor says, and just hard and long hours. And I think we've really tried to protect that, because it can be a real benefit, and we've attracted great talent because of it. But, protect those the balance of it all, and make sure people are supported, because although there's a flat structure and people are kind of got their expertise in their own areas, it's one team round one table at the end of the, and we really kind of, I would hope that everyone feels that support. And I think that kind of helps with the culture.
And really, I feel what's underpinning all of that is you are making people feel seen, which I think is ultimately what anybody wants in any environment. So whether you do that through really kind of custom fun days, or actually listening to people and what they're good at and onboarding and making them supported, then I think it is just that, like, being seen. And it's so nice to be able to do that as a small company, and I think build those individual relationships. And then that really I think that really strong team means that you can withstand things, a bit of healthy challenge, debate, not agreeing with each other, because you've invested so much time to build those strong bonds. So I feel there's just no bad time spent on any of that. It's such a good thing to do.
Yeah.
So how do you both feel that your leadership styles have evolved, which is something you've maybe had to learn pretty quickly? What's important to you? How's your style evolved? Where do you think you still need to keep learning?
I find that, like, I think it's probably, I found it harder since having my own company sometimes than when I had my team within a company. I don't know why that is. I think I think when you're within a company, you can kind of just focus on doing the leadership, because you've got all these structures that are in place. Like, you've got HR, you've got like other people that can come in and help you, you've got all the structures in place. But because we're trying to do all these things at once, do the client work, do the HR, do the finance, do the commercial growth, do everything at once. And I've sometimes felt that, you've not been able to kind of give as much as you can and things. And I think it is, and there's been learnings for us as we've gone, because I think we went from about 6 to 12 quite quickly. And that was there's a lot you kind of learn about yourself there, and what you can do when it's 6 people, and how you're all so close, you're also around each other all the time. And then 12, it does become a slightly different thing, and it's how you can kind of, because when Lara joined, it was Lara literally in our house. She would come to our house. She can think like us, because she's in every single conversation. You're kind of like in the war room all the time, thinking like that. And almost like these things happen quite naturally. And I think, like, as you grow to 12 or so, these things have to be quite deliberate when you're doing them. And you obviously, that is kind of combined with the fact that you do, you try and be a human being, you try and listen to things, you try and react to things as much as possible, but there has to be more, you have to be more deliberate about it, and trying to make sure that everyone is, you have to put in structures for one-to-ones. I mean, like, when it's 1 or 2 or 3 people, you're talking to each other every day, you're going out for coffees all the time and having these conversations and things. So I think that it's a big learning process, and it's something, but I think it's one of those things, it's one of those great things about having a business, is it's something I want to get better at all the time. So you're trying to read about it, you're trying to learn about it, you're trying to change how you are and learn from mistakes, learn from things like that. So, yeah.
I would say, we try and lead by example, kind of in sense of leadership style. It's probably that. And I think, we do going back to comparing it to our previous job, being management, I think you do take it really personally, obviously, when it is story shop, and then it's hard. That can be good and bad. And it's tricky to kind of wear that hat and give enough time to that, which actually probably should be the majority of your time to doing everything else as well. And we don't want to take, we're so heavily involved with our clients, and we actually quite like it that way, as maybe we need to be less so. But, there's always that kind of battle between and where you should sit more and getting the balance right is tricky.
Yeah, it is. And you're always learning. And I think that's the amazing thing is there's just so much you can be learning from. I think being open with the team as well, like we got this wrong or we did this, didn't work, that's going to happen, and that's part of it. I think help build that culture in the team that everyone's more open to sharing. But absolutely always still learning.
I keep having to remind myself when we did kind of shift up a notch, from the kind of 6, 7 to 12, that those new people had, it was hard to kind of almost remember that they didn't have the knowledge that the others have, and they haven't been on the same journey. Whereas the other ones, that first 6 started really early on, that they'd seen the progress and they'd seen that when we said we'd do something, we would do it, or, and we kind of build the trust. So then suddenly you had to kind of keep reminding yourself that actually that's all new to them, and they need to trust us and vice versa. And
and recommunicating some of the basics, because sometimes I think once you've been going a while, you forget, people haven't been exposed to that because they have no idea what we're talking about. It's only joined 6 months ago. So I actually think just always recommunicating all of the simple things, the structures, why we're doing things. And you're right, and if you don't do something, well, why did we not do that thing, or what did it change to? And I think it's I think probably ultimately every issue, good or bad, is communication. I think it's the hardest thing for us to get right, and that is where we can really win or fail. So it's that constant, and it's so different. And I think now we see it as the company's grown, and it's it feels so alien sometimes that you don't really know people who've joined recently. So now I'm trying to spend more time with people that I don't work with directly and just understand them as people. And I think when people have those voices and they share their opinion, it's just so different to what you had thought about the company or how they see things, and you're absolutely blown away. So I'm still learning from all of
we did our first anonymous employees survey recently, and that was great because you got there was a lot of that where we realized things have been picked up wrong that we hadn't been clear enough about, we weren't clear enough about, and it was a great chance to just be able to go, no, this is why we're doing that, and explain that a bit more, and realize there was a bit of a gap, because I think sometimes we feel we've said the same messages so many times to but not everyone has seen them, so we kind of stop ourselves, which then leaves this communication gap sometimes. So it's really interesting. You get do surveys like that, and you see all the there's loads of good stuff, but then inevitably, I think if you're in running a business, you'll always gravitate towards the 1 or 2 things that are more negative, and you think, right, we've got to solve them and find a way and things like that. So that was really good, kind of having that perspective and then trying to find ways to kind of continue to move forward.
Yeah,
we did. Sorry, Laura.
No, you go.
We did the disc profiles as well as a team for the first time. Actually, just being this size, we figured we weren't as close, even though we are still around one table. It's tricky to kind of really get to understand how people like to work and what kind of and actually with physical light bulbs, we did a sort of what turns you on, what turns you off activity, and it was really interesting, as well as kind of so we all did the disc profiles, and then but it was more important that we shared that with everyone as well, so that we don't and it just gave so much clarity as to how people like to work and what type of kind of person you are, really. And I think that was really important for us to do that and to kind of see those nuances between people. But Gregor and I are on opposite ends of the complete opposites. But
yeah, I would have guessed that, actually. I think that makes a lot of sense. That actually, to build on that a little bit, that's my next question is, what has surprised you, or what have you learned about each other as you've grown the business that you maybe didn't know before you started?
I think we like the resilience that we have as a, we probably knew that a wee bit before, but we've really tested that, since having Story Shop, and just that, we're still excited by it, and we both, so I think, yeah, I don't know if that's a surprise, but it's a good kind of finding that we have got that, and it allows us to move forward through the hard bits.
What about you, Gregor? Anything you've learned about each other during this?
No, I think that's definitely the thing. Like, it has been really, really hard over the past couple of years trying to keep it going, but it's just we always find a way. I think that's the main thing, and I think that's the creativity as well. Like, none of the things that we kind of do in either side, whether it's the kind of in the family and everything, is like the first phase thinking. We try and just find a way to make it work, and we always do get round to make it working. And I think that just, I think we've just got better and better at like understanding where the other's strong, where the other's weak, when the other's struggling. And I think that, you learn so much about each other. And I think that's one of the strengths of working together, is like, if you're, if we've both been up all night, you don't have to I probably wouldn't go in and say that to the team, but we understand that. We know what's kind of been going on, or if the boys haven't been well or whatever, and you kind of, you just have this understanding, and I think it allows you, because the reaction, I'm sure you got this as well, the reaction is like, oh, starting a business with your wife or whatever, and people are always a wee bit like, I don't know, a little bit dubious about it, but I think it does mean you can kind of cut through a lot of stuff and kind of get to another kind of level and things. So
I'm always thinking about how many benefits it has actually working together, because, well, one, just spending time together all the time, but it is nice, and actually, we see a lot of each other, but I think, I always imagine, one, doing it on your own, which is, must be so tricky, but actually the challenges of doing it with another co-founder that isn't your husband, that you can't be more straight talking to, or, have good conversations that come at 7 a.m. or 11 at night, or when you're on holiday and you can think of something quite, and that's when some good ideas come, and it's that kind of constant stream of communication that is so valuable. And I can't imagine sort of that being having to be more formal or in any way. And I think there's so many benefits to that, and having the support, just
It's the biggest challenge, because I think you're always taught to like draw lines, aren't you? Like, oh no, you have to draw a line there between your personal life and your work life and things. And I think but there's times that we're both thinking about these problems or these exciting things that we can work on and things. And then if you lie in bed and then you start going, oh, we could do that and we could do that, or what if we did that? You're both excited about it and you're both thinking about it anyway. So you have the chance to kind of follow that flow of it as well. So that's what kind of one of the unseen benefits, probably.
Yeah, I suppose that has been surprising in a good way, that it's kind of worked out so well.
Yeah, and I don't think it is a negative. If you love your work and you enjoy it, I think burnout is not something that you will experience, even if you're doing it all of the time, because you're passionate about it and it doesn't necessarily feel like work. So those conversations might happen late at night, and that seems very strange to people who are talking about work, and it's it can feel like an all-consuming thing. But actually, if something that you love, then I think that's a really positive thing. And then you find your off time, whatever that means for you guys as a couple. And I think having someone that empathizes, like you said, maybe what's going on at home, but also to empathise what's going on at work. Because if just one of you is in a business and, going full pelt at it, I think it would be really hard for your partner to always understand what that feels like. So actually you can shortcut those conversations at work and at home, because there's a very deep understanding. But definitely brutal honesty is maybe easier with your partner. I think if you had a business partner, maybe a bit formalised. So for better or for worse. Okay, great. So my last question is, what is the one question that you wish more people would ask you, and what would your answer be?
Well, we're talking about this a bit before and thinking about, we get asked, does PR work a lot of the time? I love myth busting about PR, about explaining why, because what happens a lot of time is like people will have one bad experience with PR and then throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, oh, PR doesn't work because I put one release out and then it didn't result in huge sales and things like that. And I think, right, well, I love having that conversation and being able to kind of explain and, use real examples of times that we've, where a client has had like the trust and the patience and gone along the journey with us, and then the actual impact it can have over time, because it's a long-term game. It's not just go out with one release and see your business, and that can happen, but it's the whole thing about PR is it's not guaranteed. It's not like you're guaranteed this amount of eyeballs if you go out with a press release. There are so many intangibles when you're doing it, and I think being able to I love getting stuck into that conversation with people and being able to explain, talk through why they have these misconceptions about it, and talk through their own experience with it, and be able to give that other perspective. And then also, nobody really understands what PR is. So if you're not in it a lot of the time, I've kind of found, and I love being able to explain it and talk about it and explain all the kind of multifaceted things about it. And yeah.
But we also did say that we would love if clients were asking us if we were able to use extra budget, or if someone said, do you want a night off the kids, blah blah blah. So
just to add to that, I heard somebody recently, and this was the first experience for me in terms of PR is also a long-term investment strategy. So this was somebody that sold their business for hundreds of millions of dollars, but the goal was, we need to get exposure in the US, and this might take us 3 years, 5 years. PR is the only way to do that over a very long period of time. And I think you're right, people are looking for that quick fix, but actually, no, this might be a long-term investment, but you're going to sell your company for $300 million. So you're like, yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I think people aren't always thinking in that long-term approach, but actually the valuation is crazy in terms of what you're spending to get in front and be heard of by US investors or potential acquirers. There's almost no price you can put on that.
If you are looking to, get investment or sell a business, then the biggest thing is they have to trust you. And if you've had top tier media outlets talking about you and talking about how great you are, that does increase trust. That does make people think, oh, they've been rubber stamped by a third party. And, that's kind of the only way to get that, I think, sometimes. And that's something that, you have to do over time, and you have to build that, and you have to kind of set the scene with the business and then grow and develop the media contacts, be there waiting when there is the perfect thing to be able to comment on and use your thought leadership for, and be ready for that, and jumping on trends, and you have to be in the game. And I think so over time, the more you're in the game, the more of these great opportunities will come, and then that creates the more opportunity for that, that game-changing article or something like that is going to transform, because it'll meet the moment and you'll be kind of there for it.
And I think a lot of our clients are, a lot of them now, just it is an overhead for them that's built in like anything else, electricity, marketing, and it didn't used to be, but now that there's no way to kind of operate without it, and being, a sort of, there every month as a cost, as at least a kind of throughout.
And it's the same as building a business. There's no shortcuts, unfortunately. It is just month after month, trying, tasting stuff that works. So that's a great answer. So thank you both for your time, and congratulations on building such an amazing business and being such amazing people. So yes, well done, and can't wait to see what happens next for Story Shop. So thanks for listening to this week's episode of Tag Lab. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure that you subscribe by hitting follow on whatever podcast platform you listen to so you can get the latest episode. Thanks.